What's up guys, Josh Luck here, and in today's video I'm going to talk about product photography for your Etsy listings. And studies have actually shown that listings with better photos actually convert better because people are drawn to those and more likely to click on them. So in this video I'm going to break down 3 important steps for getting better product photography. And that is your camera, your lighting, and your setup. And I'm not going to use fancy equipment or tell you to go buy stuff. I'm going to use stuff you can find at home so everyone can have access to really good product photography. Now, without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is lighting. And lighting is arguably the most important part of good product photography because you can really put the spotlight on your product, no pun intended, but you can fully light it up, have no shadows, and really make it the subject of your photo. With bad lighting, you can have weird shadows and it can kind of make it come out weird. So I'm going to show you how to properly set up lights for taking good photos of your products. And for the purpose of this video, I'm going to say you can use lamps or anything you have around the house to light up your product. I'm not going to tell you to go out and buy a fancy light kit. I actually have a light kit that I found on Amazon for $30 for my videos, but certainly you're not obligated or you're not required to have a fancy light kit. You can use lamps that are laying around your house. And within those lamps, I would recommend having a white light bulb like this. And as you can see, the light on me is kind of white. The problem with like natural yellow light bulbs, it will leave the product and the image looking yellow, and you really want to make sure it's in white light so it's very crisp and clean. So if you have lamps, I would recommend putting white light bulbs in them, but if you're stretched and you just have yellow light bulbs, it's certainly okay. You can still make it work. Now, the setup of the lights, you want to have at least 3 sources of lights. You want 2 in the front and 1 back. So here, I'll actually film a video on my phone and show you what I'm looking at here on my YouTube setup. So I actually have, let me get a video of this. So I actually have a light over here on the left, the camera in the middle, the microphone, and then a light up there on the left. And so these lights, imagine me as the product you're taking a photo of. So I have 1 light to my right and 1 light to my left. The reason I have 2 is it illuminates my face on both sides. And if I were to take one of these lights off, as you can see, I have a sharp shadow on my right and I'm still illuminated on my left, and then vice versa if I switched it around. So the same concept applies to your product photography. You want to have 2 light sources in the front so there's no sharp shadows on either side of the product. You can fully illuminate the entire product. And then in addition to the 2 lights in the front, you also want a backlight. This will create light coming in from the back and avoid shadows that are like stretched behind it. So if you only have 2 lamps or you're worried about the backlight getting in the shot, you can always use a window. So for my videos, I use 2 in the front, and then I actually use this window right here that you can see in my frame as my natural sunlight backlight. I don't have a light behind me. So in general, for your setup, I would recommend having 2 lights in the front to equally distribute the light on your subject, and then a backlight to avoid any shadows behind the object. So everything 360 is illuminated. So the second key to taking good product photography is obviously your camera. So I'm filming right now on a DSLR, but ironically enough, my iPhone, my smartphone, has a better camera than my DSLR. So you can actually use your phone for your product photography if you have a phone with a good camera. If you've got a flip phone with kind of a pixelated camera, I probably wouldn't recommend that. But most people nowadays have access to some sort of camera. So you are certainly, oh, don't want that dying on me. You are certainly okay using your phone. And in fact, I would recommend it because your phone will probably be the nicest camera you have access to. So camera, don't worry about it. You don't need a nice fancy camera. You can certainly use your smartphone. And then in addition to your smartphone, I'm going to take that a step further and tell you some principles of photography, something called the rule of thirds, or some call it the golden rule of photography. So if you notice when you pull up your camera on your phone, I don't know if you can see this, but normally you have a grid on your phone 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines. And if you've ever wondered what that's for, it's actually for the rule of thirds. So let me scoot over and have a little graphic right here. But the rule of thirds is cutting your frame into 9 sections. And if you position your subject, as I'm going to have an example right here, if you position your subject on one of these lines, it will actually shift it from the middle to either left or right, up or down. And I don't know the exact science behind it, but it creates a better composition and is more pleasing to the eye. And actually, I do know why, because I took classes on this in college. What happens is when you have your subject in the middle of the frame, your eye looks at the subject and then just kind of falls off. But subconsciously, if you use the rule of thirds and put your subject on one of these axes, your eye goes to the subject first, and then to the background, and then back to the eye. That way your eye is trapped in a loop on your photo, and you don't just fall off. So subconsciously, positioning your subject with the rule of thirds actually helps people look at the photo longer. And, oh shoot. Oh, my camera turned off. I hope I didn't lose that footage. But what I was saying is when you put your subject on the rule of thirds, it subconsciously creates people's eyes or encourages people's eyes to look at the photo longer. So when you're thinking about this in your product photography, maybe check out that grid and keep the rule of thirds in mind. You can really have good composition. And I'll put some examples on the screen of some really good product photography that uses the rule of thirds in their photo. And now the third and final piece to getting really good product photography is your background. I would always recommend using a white or light background that causes really good contrast between the subject, which is your product, and the background. And you don't need a fancy pull down light kit that you see that photographers have. You can use a piece of paper or a piece of cardboard. And in this example, I'm going to use a piece of copy paper. Most people have this in their house. And this is perfect for small items. If you have bigger items, maybe just go to Walmart or some store. You can get a big white poster board for like $1. Super cheap, definitely worth it. And so if you get next to a wall and you get your paper or poster board and you put it like an L shape against the wall, so it's like this, and put your product in the middle of it, if you zoom in, you can have that white as your background. And then with your proper lighting, it'll be fully lit and it will really create exposure against the white background. So you can use, if you don't want to use the paper, you can use a bed sheet pinned up against the wall or anything around your house that will create a white background. And so I would always recommend doing that, and it's pretty easy to do at home. You can find most anything white around the house. So those are 3 keys to getting really good product photography. And if you implement those, especially the lighting, especially the 3-point lighting, you can really improve your product photography. So I hope this video helped. If it did, leave a thumbs up, like it. Don't forget to subscribe. I post twice a week, and I will see y'all in the next video. Thanks for watching.